People think about the one percenters as a bad group of people. No, they're just people that want more. They want to be more, do more, and have more, give more, right? 99% of the people you will interface with in your life will be outgrown by your ambition if you are truly somebody meant to be in the 1%. You will outgrow everybody. People will disappoint you. It's the same thing with making friends.
Pace, what's up, dude? I'm here with Pace Morby today. Super excited to have you on the show.
Jaron, you're the man, bro. We just spent an hour literally just chopping it up and chatting about all sorts of amazing things. So I feel like we already know each other pretty well. This is cool.
I know, this is awesome. Yeah, I feel bad because the audience isn't getting what we just talked about for an hour. Sorry, guys, but it was more marketing stuff. It was like business marketing, boring, nerdy stuff. We'll dive into the real estate here because obviously that's what most people came to this channel to hear. How do they continue to grow their real estate portfolio, financial freedom through real estate, and what better person to learn from than yourself? So, man, I am so excited to dive in today.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, so tell everybody. I always start the podcast. Who is Pace before real estate? We know the creative, creative finance, and we're going to dive all into that. But before you got into the real estate world, what does life look like for you?
I came from a family of 12 kids, hardworking family. Mom and dad still together, so I had that leg up. Really, really grateful for that. My parents taught me how to love hard work and love working every single day. And so when people are like, how do these successful people find success? Remember, guys, we love to work hard. Nobody has to convince us to work hard, right? We learn from a young age to enjoy it and love it and actually crave to work. Even when I'm on vacation, I'm blocking out times to work because that's where I get my fulfillment. That's where I live in my purpose. So I got that from my family. I went on a mission for my church, went to Korea, came home, and I became a contractor. Why did I become a contractor? I became a contractor because my dad was a contractor. I think a lot of people just basically learn from your environment. It was interesting the other day. I met this Asian lady in Brooklyn. I went and did this meetup for my community, and this Asian lady walks up to me, and then she has this Australian accent, and I'm like, "What?" And it's interesting, like what you assume, somebody that is from Asian descent would speak with an Asian accent or maybe even just a regular American accent. But for the fact that she was born in Australia just kind of determined her future, didn't it? It determined every word that came out of her mouth was where she was born, who she hung out with, et cetera. And so a lot of you guys, uh, you know, fortunate or maybe unfortunate, depending on where you're at, you might not have been as lucky as I was. I was very lucky to have mom and dad love each other. My dad still is a hardworking guy to this day, and 12 siblings. I learned the value of community from very, very young age. That was like threaded through my DNA.
Mm.
I became a contractor. One day, a lady woke me up. She punched me basically verbally in the face and told me that I was a slave to my business. And therefore, if I was a slave to my business, I was basically an employee and I didn't control my future. And she got me into real estate. And so for 10 years prior, before that moment, I was Open Door, Zillow, and OfferPad's largest contractor. And so I worked my guts out, put a team of 250 people together, and we were doing, probably $20 million a year in revenue for doing construction for all these big hedge funds back when Invitation Homes and Blackstone was just getting started and all these companies were just like taking over the real estate space. I was one of the contractors that was in that, making a name for myself.
That is pretty awesome. So you started not starting in the real estate space, but before you started buying, you had experience dabbling in the real estate world just through contractor
Yeah,
work.
and to put this into perspective, I always told myself one day I'm going to own property, one day I'm going to own property, one day I'm going to own property, but I tricked myself into believing I was actually in real estate
Mm.
by being a contractor because I was touching houses and fixing and flipping for other people and their portfolios. I tricked myself into believing like this was a step in the right direction. It was golden handcuffs. I in 2015, so this is 2014. Sorry, this is about 10 years ago. I took home my first $1 million as a contractor.
Wow.
Like took it home after taxes, 2014. Knew what it felt like to make $100,000 basically per month and take home over $1 million a year.
Gee.
That was insane.
Yeah.
And so the problem was I was reinvesting my money into my construction company all the time. I wasn't buying anything other than more equipment, more this, more that. I was essentially just making the golden handcuffs even stronger, or maybe building a second pair of golden handcuffs, if that made sense. And I told myself for 7 years that I was going to get into real estate. Meanwhile, I knew more about real estate than anybody I was even working for. Like, if you find a good contractor, holy crap, hold on to that person because we know more about the house than you'll ever know.
Yep.
And if I could go back, I would have told myself what Bethany Willis told me in 2015. What Bethany Willis told me in 2015, I would have told myself that in 2009,
Mm.
which was, you're a slave. You're not in real estate. The only people that are in real estate are the one that own real estate. And I was like, well, aren't real estate agents in real estate? She goes, no, they're not. I go, wait, what? And she says, yeah, think about this. Is a mobile notary in real estate? I go, I guess not really. She goes, exactly. They are servicing people who own real estate. They do things for the industry. They service the industry, right? I go, do contractors, are contractors in real estate? Because they fix and flip all this houses. She's like, I go, I guess not. They're in construction.
Mm.
And she goes, so why would you think a real estate agent is in real estate? They are a service provider. They put a stick in a yard and a listing on the MLS. They negotiate some paperwork. They do not own the real estate. They do not control the real estate. They benefit from somebody else's transaction that is in real estate. Even a real estate agent is a service provider.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. She says, all of those people, including you, are a simple Google search away from being replaced.
Mm. Bro, that is a gut punch.
That's why I'm telling you, she punched me in the face, like verbally.
Holy moly. You know what else is crazy? Like, tell me if this statistic is too harsh, like dialing in specifically on realtors in the investment real estate world.
Oh, you'll never tell me something's too harsh for real
Do
estate agents.
1% of real estate agents know anything about investing in real estate? I mean,
Yeah,
that,
so think about this. This is a really interesting statistic. Less than 60% of them, okay? Actually, I'm sorry. Less than 40% of real estate agents own their primary residence, and less than 18% of real estate agents have any sort of real estate that they own outside of their primary residence. And most of those are second homes, like vacation homes.
mhm,
Less than 5% of real estate agents even own one rental property. Less than 1% of real estate agents own five or more.
jeez.
So you tell me if real estate agents are in real estate or not. They're not.
No.
And I can tell you, I'm sorry, if you're a real estate agent in here, this is a wake up call, not me trying to beat you up, but you are not learning real estate by being a real estate agent. Okay. Real estate investors like us, we operate in a very different set of information
Yeah.
and a different world than you agents run in. I have not thought about how do I earn a commission once in my life. And agents run around all day long with commission breath. And so
Yep.
this is what Bethany Willis basically highlighted to me. Cause I go, well, I do want to get into real estate. She's like, what's keeping you? I go, I guess I got to get my license. She's like, get your license. What do you
Bro,
want to
how
have
many DMs do you get about that, by the way? I get so many DMs saying, "Do I
so
need to
much
have my license to do real estate?" I'm like,
all the time?
"Bro, no. Just go. Don't even get an LLC. I mean, yes, eventually, but just go buy a property. Like, stop worrying about the stuff that doesn't matter." People get caught up on the dumbest stuff.
Well, because what it is like, especially, now I'm at a point where I have attorneys that call me and ask me for advice on how to structure creative finance deals, or, hey, Pace, I'm in New Jersey. I'm a closing attorney here. I saw all your stuff. You come highly recommended. Can you tell me all this stuff? I'm at a point now where I don't even revere an attorney
Mm.
at the same regard that I used to 10 years ago.
Oh.
I didn't used to revere them. I used to fear attorneys and I used to fear real estate agents because I'd go, oh my gosh, they have a license. Therefore, they know stuff.
Mm.
And if you're a licensed agent, you know this. You guys have a worthless, I've taken the class, 2-week class that teaches you nothing important. You don't even know how to comp a property. They don't teach you how to value real estate in real estate school. Did you know that, people? They don't teach you how to value real estate, yet you have a license to sell a homeowner's largest asset. The most important financial decision they've ever made in their life is who's going to sell my house
Yeah.
that has all my equity so I can roll it into my this or my retirement or whatever else. And you just graduated real estate school with a license, yet you don't even know how to run numbers on a property.
It's dangerous. Dude, I remember when I first started teaching people, like even before the whole brand, when I would come in contact with an agent, when I first started, like people would ask me, they wanted me to articulate, hey, how have you bought real estate? I was nervous to teach people in the real estate industry, whether it's an agent, whether it's a contractor, because in my mind, it's like they know so much more than me.
Mm,
And then we start talking, and it was like, bro, and it's not a beat down. It's like you just understand. I'm just driving home your point. Just because you are a servicer in the industry does not mean you're the expert. And it just opened my eyes because I used to be so quote unquote intimidated by what knowledge I thought they had until I
yeah.
dug in and realized, bro, they actually need my help in this particular
They
area.
do.
They can
They
help.
do, and there's a really great quote, and anybody listening to this should think about this. Your personal income, okay? Your personal income will never outgrow your personal development.
Mm,
And if you're not learning how to raise money, how to buy rentals, how to acquire and build a portfolio, that's not something that real estate agents learn from school or learn something from their broker. Their broker, the reason why their broker is named a broker is because the broker is broker than the real estate agent.
mm.
That's it.
Like,
They make less money on the transactions. They sit there, they're like, "Oh, let me get 50 agents in here." Their whole business model is actually, I think I tease agents about this all the time. I tell people your real estate broker actually is better at creative finance than you ever will be. And they're like, "What are you talking about? My broker says that I shouldn't do creative finance." I'm like, "Well, your broker is doing creative finance." And they go, "Well, how?" I go, "It's called arbitrage." They
mm,
bring in you as a human being. You go pay for your own license. You go put 2 weeks into school. You go do all this stuff. Then you go to your personal network of individuals. You go list their properties. You go sell their house. You then get a commission, and your broker gets paid before you do.
mm.
That's called creative finance. How can I go make money on other people's stuff without any money or skin in the game? I'll create a brokerage that goes out and gets these people to go out and go tap into their personal networks, sell their sister's house, et cetera, and I'll go make money and arbitrage these human beings work. That's called creative finance, called arbitrage. Okay. So, they're blown away by that and they go, wait, yeah, that's right. And I go, yeah, creative finance is in every day of life. You just don't see it. But the challenge with real estate agents is that they don't develop themselves past their 2-week class.
Yeah.
They're not they're even their continued education course. This was a mind-blowing thing for people that are paying attention to this, that are licensed real estate agents, that will go, "Oh crap, he caught us." Y'all go to the 2-week class, you pass your real estate exam, and then the real estate board requires you to go to continued education. They hire assistants to do the continued education for them because they're like, "I'm not gonna be bothered with developing my intelligence. I'm a licensed agent." So most of the agents I know, and even escrow officers, they do the same thing when they have continued education. They have somebody in the office, some admin goes and does their homework on their continued education. Or how do I know this, by the way, Jaron? Because I own a virtual assistant company, and the number one person that hires us are agents who hire our Filipinos to take their continued education classes for them and pay us like $200.
Oh my gosh.
So the challenge is, you assume that a real estate agent that's been in the business for 15 years, like you'll hear a Coldwell Banker agent. I don't know why it's always a Coldwell Banker agent. They're like, "Pace, I've been in the business for 15 years." And I'm like, yeah, you know what? People were in the NBA for a lot of time before Michael Jordan came on the scene. Like, the
Mm,
amount of time that you're in the industry doesn't mean anything to me. What have you actually accomplished? What is your skill set? What have you done lately? And I didn't know this stuff. This was never an opinion I had. I was actually the opposite opinion. The opposite opinion was, agents know more than I do, and they're the gatekeepers of real estate. Guys, they're not even just not the gatekeepers. I don't really, my business does not depend on one real estate agent to do anything in my life.
mm.
And we control, I'm not Grant Cardone level, but we control about $500 million in real estate holdings. We don't really go through agents.
Wow. There are some to give credit where credit is due. There are agents who focus on real estate investing who do a fantastic job.
Oh yeah, they're the 1%.
The
I
one
called I call them unicorn agents, and I love them.
they're amazing, but unfortunately, the rest of them don't. And I think it goes back to, and we'll get off the agents so we don't roast them the whole time. But it goes back to what you mentioned earlier in the episode, and then what we were talking about offline is most folks don't want to put in the extra work that it takes to be successful in their field. I'll never forget, I graduated playing college baseball at Charleston Southern, small little Division 1, and I had worked my whole life to get to Division 1 baseball, and it took a lot of work. Like, it was
Yeah.
a grind, and I still was like, okay, I was a mid-major Division 1 player, didn't play professionally, but it's like I put in the work. I learned what it took to be successful.
Right.
And so then I went into the working world and I started at Centos, the uniform company. So I'm literally up at like 4 o'clock every morning on a box truck, delivering clean uniforms, picking up dirty, changing out urinal cakes. It was awful. It was fantastic in a sense. It taught me everything as a foundation that I needed for business, but just a work life balance or sleep life balance. I was just struggling. I was like 22 years old and absolutely dying. But it was so good for me because it taught me really quickly that most people, 99% of people, never put in the work. I saw that within my first 6 months of working. And I
Right.
said, bro, if I just keep putting in the hours and the effort that it took me to play Division 1 ball, I am going to absolutely dominate this working world. And not only that, I actually get paid to do this. So it's like I was grinding all these years for baseball. It's like nobody's paying me. I'm just chasing a dream. But now I can wake up every day and freaking demolish everybody and then
Yeah.
get paid and recognized for it. Like, it's amazing. But the greatest thing was like nobody else is doing it. So the cream can rise to the top very quickly. But I can't grasp or comprehend why folks like stay in the majority. Why are the 99% so lazy and not going
Because
to try?
they try to avoid pain, right? That's the human condition. The human condition, the lizard in the back of your brain, right? The prehistoric version of us back, 25 million years ago or whatever it was. There's that lizard, and if anybody's ever listening, Google this. You just type in lizard brain and watch 15 YouTube videos about this. There is a portion of our brain that protects us from pain,
Mm,
and you have to overcome that. You have to become strong enough to be aware of it. Number one, and then two, to overcome it. And the lizard brain is a real thing. And going back to what you're saying, Jaron, is you listen to Alex Ramosi, and he sent me a message, and then he posted this like a couple weeks after he sent me this message, and the message was, imagine if you have to create a badass, like you are creating a human being, and you want that human being to be full of grit, a total badass, to be able to overcome anything. What would you have to put that human being through in order to make them become that person?
mm.
It probably wouldn't be a very chill life. And so when you really think about that, right? Heavenly Father, Jesus, God, whoever you want to call him, the universe if you're agnostic to a certain degree. The universe has given us laws, and the law is you go through the pain, you learn the thing, you stretch, you gain new muscles, you gain new understandings, and you accomplish and you triumph. And we were talking about this earlier before the podcast. Like the reason why the blue collar dudes typically figure it out is because we enjoy to love the pain
Mm.
and the grit. And we know what it feels like to be out baling hay early in the morning. We know what it feels like to have to go feed the horses. We know what it feels like to go out and feed the dogs and do the this and shovel the snow and do all the things. Whereas these kids nowadays, actually not just nowadays, every single generation has this set of kids. They've never been put through anything painful. So when it comes down to, I got to figure out my life, I got to figure out what decision to make. Oh my gosh, this rental property is going to require work. They then psych themselves out and they avoid all the pain they possibly can because that's what they've been doing their whole life. What is a 9 to 5 job besides I want to avoid the pain and I'd rather have somebody else tell me what to do than come up with it on my own?
All the systems are in place. You just show up. People think, oh, we're going through adversity at this company, bro. Let me tell you what you're not going through as a
Yeah.
boy. I mean, no offense. Everything's in place. Everything's built out. Jump out into the wild, wild west
Yeah.
if you want to feel some pain.
And the thing is, like, you're not here's what the other thing too about being in the 9 to 5 world, guys. You're not practicing what Heavenly Father, Jesus, the universe put you here for. They put you here to create, right? We were made in His image, and His image, He's a creator. So if we are made in His image, does that make us creators? Well, what are you creating if you're at a 9 to 5 job and you're just plugged into somebody else's system?
Yeah.
Now, so here's what you have to do. You have to figure out, how do I create in my off hours?
Yeah.
And that honestly is the biggest problem. I don't tell people they should avoid a 9 to 5 job. I
Leverage.
tell I tell people leverage it. Yes, leverage the 9 to 5 job and then put your grit and your time and your creative abilities that God gave you, the universe gave you right here, put those into going through a year or 2 years of pain of making the calls, building the relationships, which, when you get into the real estate business, I look at anything in our real estate business and I'm like, there's actually nothing hard. It's just things you're not used to or unaware of how it feels. And so
Good.
it's like jumping into a pool that you think is going to be cold and you're like, oh, you're avoiding it. You avoid it. You avoid it. You avoid it. You know what? I'm just going to not jump in. Meanwhile, you jump in and in 15 seconds, you're used to the water and you're like, what was I so afraid of?
Wow.
That's what it's like buying real estate.
Yep.
You
We
get in, you're like, wow, I'm swimming. I'm enjoying this. Why was I even worried about this? I can't wait till I swim again. And you keep doing it. And when you see other people, this is the funniest thing. When you see somebody else, you're already in the pool, you're swimming around, and somebody else is standing on the sidelines. You're like, dude, it's not as bad as you think. Jump in. It's enjoyable. That's what you and I sound like right now,
Yep.
right? We sound like that right now, yelling at people, going, just jump
Just
in.
do it. We know what's on the other side. But
Yeah.
what about the 2 a.m. plumbing call pace? What about
I don't deal with those 2 a.m. Plumbing calls, but I get that some people do. I don't know one of my tenants' names. I know a lot of the addresses that I used to be the one that negotiated all the contracts, and I used to be the person that was involved in telling the story of it to the team. But now I'm scaled to a point where I don't know any of that stuff,
Yep.
which is good. That's where you want to be, right? Write this down, everybody. Like, think about this. Santa Claus does not make the toys.
Mm.
So at some point, you have to scale a business. And Santa Claus, the guy that we all the jolly man that climbs down the chimney, doesn't make the toys. He delivers the toys, right? He casts the vision, but he's got elves, he's got reindeer, he's got all these tools and these systems and processes. So at some point, you will have to scale into that role, and that's where I currently am, which is nice. But when I was involved in it, I think the thing that really made me fearful of jumping in are the stupidest things.
Mhm.
The first one was, where does the money come from?
Yep.
Second one was like, well, what happens if blank,
Mm.
which like most of them rarely happen. And when they do happen, it's like jumping into cold water. You're like, oh, that wasn't bad.
Just figure it out.
Why was I so worried about it for?
Yeah. I
And not just you figure it out. Think about everything you've had bad happen on a rental property was an opportunity for you to learn a new lesson. And it actually stuck to your brain because it was a tangible story on a tangible asset you owned rather than some book or, I hate to say this, but like some podcast that you're listening to is only going to get so far into your brain. But when it's a property that you own, that's where all the real lessons come in.
Yep. Then you can teach people like we're able to do. We would not be neither of us would be able to do what we do today if we would have never taken the jump and said, you know what, we will face these things that we don't have the answers to today.
Yeah.
We're going to get in, we're going to learn, we're going to figure it out, we're going to put systems and processes in place. I think we're emotional beings and we make emotional decisions. Emotions are part of who we are. But if we allow the emotions to create so much fear that it keeps us from ever moving forward,
Yeah.
we're in trouble. So at some point, we have to talk with somebody like myself or yourself or somebody in our network to be able to bust through the emotion enough to get punched in the face with some logic. Just like your friend punched you in the face with the logic and said,
Yeah.
if you don't start buying real estate, you're going to be handcuffed forever.
Yeah.
And so we've got to put ourselves in those circles. And that's why community is so important. That's why people in your circle and networking is so important because we can just sit in our little corner, analyze, hear stuff, and tell ourselves every reason why we shouldn't do something. But it's all just emotional and fear based. And
Yeah. When I ask people, people will be like, I'm struggling, right? Like I'm on like a YouTube live or I'm on a Facebook live or something. I'm struggling. I'm like, number one question I always ask is this: who's your best friend in real estate and how many deals did they do last quarter?
mm,
Because I already know the answer. The answer is I don't have a friend in real estate and I don't know anybody that's actually doing deals. You need proximity to other people. It's the same thing. I had somebody in Brooklyn. I did a meetup a couple of weeks ago in Brooklyn. And somebody comes up to me and they go, Pace, I don't like answering questions at my meetups because I just want to meet everybody. Right. So people come up to me and they go, hey, what is subject to? I'm like, bro, I've answered that on my YouTube channel. Please, like, I just want to build a relationship with you. But these questions about, technical things are keeping you and I from actually getting to know each other. So please, let's just connect.
yeah.
So he goes like, I know you don't want to answer a question. Okay, I just got one. I got one. I go, let me guess. Your question is you want to be more, do more, have more. One of those, a variation of those three questions. You want to be more, do more, have more. That's it. He goes, yeah. How'd you know? I go, because I've answered and talked to a lot of people. I say, "What are you good at, dude? What are you good at?" And he goes, I don't know. I'm pretty good at my job." I go, "Okay, outside of your job, like anything." And he's thinking I'm thinking work related. So I go, "Dude, non-work related, what are you good at?" He says, "Swimming." I actually was like a competitive swimmer. "Oh, amazing. Okay, I love this. This is great. You had a teacher, right? You had a coach, you had a whatever, right?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "You thought you were learning more from the coach or the teacher, but the reality is you're probably learning more from the guy in the next lane from you and how he was turning his arm and how he kicked his foot and how he got out of the water and when he jumped and when he did this and what swimming shorts he was wearing or Speedo or whatever it was that you were." He's like, "Yeah." I go, "Dude, you got to be in proximity to people that are doing the thing that you want to do. There's no other way to succeed." Think about me as a framer when I learned how to be a framer.
Yeah.
I could have watched YouTube videos on YouTube videos and then gone to Home Depot and go, "All right, give me a bunch of 2x4s and nails." And I would have basically hobbled together a house in 10 times the amount of time it should have happened. And it would have fallen over in the first gust of wind. Okay. Meanwhile, I did watch the videos. I did watch books on how to frame and, the dummy's guide to blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. But then the second I actually landed a framing job when I was 17 years old, it was after school and on weekends. I stood next to a framer that had been framing for 25 years. And in 1 week, I consolidated maybe 5 of those years of his understanding into 1 week of me standing next to him in proximity.
Crazy.
And so people are like, "Oh, wait, so it's not a book. It's not a this. It's not." I go, "No, it's being a part of a community of successful people, getting people around you because there's nothing I've ever learned." And Jaron, I'm sure you're the same way. There's nothing I've ever learned. Baseball, I'm sure the same thing. Like you had a coach, you had a this, you had a swing coach, you had all this stuff, physical, but it was the other dudes on the team that you were aggregating information from in an unspoken manner.
Yeah.
It was the unspoken things that you pick up, how they live their life. Like here's a good example too. My wife and I, we now have some means, and so it's like, hey, let's hire somebody to help out with this thing, right? Laundry, right? Let's hire somebody to help out with the laundry so we can focus more time on hanging out with the kids. Like that's what rich people do. That's one of the signs of success is they delegate the things that are keeping them away from spending every moment from producing or hanging out with their kids.
Yep.
Everything else is stupid. Stop being the weirdo that's like, I need to do my own laundry. Okay.
Got to
I
mow my lawn today with the push mower.
exactly. Okay. And I used to love mowing my lawn on the first house I owned when I was 21, 22, 23. I would cross hatch it and I'd make it look like a baseball field. And man, I obsessed over that. If I was actually spending time hanging out with people that were in real estate at that time, you wouldn't even know me. I'd be a billionaire by now. So I'm talking to my wife about this. This goes on for literally 2 years. You can imagine date night, random conversations. We're tripping over laundry. My wife has a brand new baby. I'm like, "Babe, we should have somebody doing this because I'm doing it. I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Instead of me listening to a podcast or reading, I'm doing laundry." Well, guess what, Jaron? It wasn't me that convinced my wife that it was time to hire somebody. We went on a double date with one of my really good friends, Jerry Norton, and his wife, Anne Marie. And she was over there talking to my wife about how they live their life with 10 kids. I wasn't paying attention to the conversation. I could just overhear what they were talking about. I was over here talking to Jerry about YouTube and other fun things that we like to talk about. And that night on the drive home, my wife's like, "Hey, you know what? I got an idea. I think maybe we should hire somebody to do our laundry."
What? Your idea?
Right. But isn't that funny? Okay. Isn't that funny that my wife did not register for 2 years that I was bringing it up to her?
Wow.
Right? It wasn't until somebody that she respected and that was also the same sex and a peer of hers showed her, "This is how I live my life." My Anne Marie didn't tell Laura, "Hey, you should go hire somebody to do your laundry." She actually just said, "Well, we get to go on these vacations. And luckily we got this girl that does our laundry. She's amazing. She saved all this time for us." And then she moves on. It was literally that small of a snippet of information. And so, guys, it's the same thing with real estate. You hang out with people, you're part of a community, you've got a coach that knows what they're doing. You're going to learn through osmosis. You're going to learn more in unspoken ways than you will even in the spoken ways. And so you got to be around the people that are doing the thing you want to do.
Hey guys, when you're just starting out as a real estate investor, finding deals is the most important thing you can do. But unfortunately, it can also be your biggest hurdle. And let me tell you, it gets even harder when your business grows and you don't have a lot of time to look for properties and evaluate deals like you did on the front end. That's why you need to work with New Western. New Western has properties ready for rehab on their marketplace today. That means you skip the hours of research, driving neighborhoods, or calling agents. And instead, you get to start with a ready-made property. You can rehab and flip it, or rehab it and burr it and hold it as a rental. So why is New Western good at what they do? Well, they buy and sell a property every 13 minutes. They work exclusively with investors and value add properties, and that's all they do. They're licensed agents, they have a network of lenders, and they'll help you grow your business. So if you're ready to jumpstart your next project, visit newwestern.com, join their marketplace, and access the largest private source of rehab properties in the nation.
That's spot on. Dude, that's good stuff. That is really good stuff. Part of why this brand started, my personal brand, was I have somebody who's close to me who wasn't in a circle that was talking about investing. He
Mm,
just wasn't doing it. He was making good money, high up. And I was kind of like you with your wife. I was kind of like, hey man, you probably should look at investing. You're making some money. You should probably put in your money. Well, he starts putting himself in online, not even like in a tangible like local community, an online community where they start talking about investing. So what's he do? He starts investing. I'm like, bro,
yeah.
I said that to you. He's like, whatever. He's in this community now, and they convinced him. And it was amazing because I knew it was going to change his life. So then that kind of struck me. Just quick backstory on how Finance Cowboy started was like, well, I need to get online and tell my story so that maybe I can be that guy who
Yeah.
convinces somebody, husband or wife or brother-in-law or friend, to start investing. And here I am today. And so your story's spot on. It's like, how do we get around those people? How do we hear those messages? How do we put ourselves in those places to
Well, this is an interesting thing too. And the people that are closest to you are not going to be actually a good fit for you. So,
Yep.
like, I went to Korea for a mission for my church. I went and spoke Korean. I actually became the translator for like 500 missionaries in Korea because I got so good at Korean.
wow.
And how did I learn Korean? There's two parts of the story. How did I learn Korean so well? Well, I went to the missionary training center for 3 months. Took me a week to learn how to say hello. No joke. Okay. I had to learn how to say hello. It's 안녕하십니까. And I had to do like wordplay for my stupid brain to get around it, which was onion on my sneakers was the cadence that I had to teach myself. So it's like 안녕 하십니까. Okay, got it. So I got that. Took a week to learn how to say hello. I was there for 3 months. I got thrown into the country, but the companion that I had to my side was another dude from America, and so we were speaking English all day long. So I was so blessed. My second area that I got moved to, this is like 5 months into the mission, was with a Korean companion that did not speak a single word of English. That is where I learned Korean.
Oh.
I learned so much Korean because I was forced to speak about this topic. Now, I get pretty good at Korean. All right. Now, I'm like maybe a year and a half into my 2-year mission. I'm pretty good. I can carry on any conversation with just about anybody. But anytime I would meet with a Korean person and they'd never heard Korean come out of my mouth, they see my skin, they see I'm American, and they're expecting me to say, hello, my name is Pace.
Yeah.
But instead, I say it in Korean and they go, what? And I go, I say it again in Korean. They go, I don't know what you're saying. And I write it down in Korean and I show it to them and they go, I don't understand this. I'm not joking, Jaron. This is insane. My missionary companion would then say, he's Korean. He would say, Pace is telling you hello, blah, 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 but he's saying it in Korean. The person I'm speaking to is so unexpectedly, they're expecting to hear me speak English. Okay. So this goes to like your friends and family. When you, Jaron, go tell a friend of yours, hey, go get into real estate investing, they don't identify you
Mm.
as somebody who's a financial expert. And
Yep.
so when they hear it, it doesn't register in their mind as credible information.
Yeah.
So they then go and seek it out somewhere else. And so your idea of, hey, I'm going to go create a brand and I'm going to become credible around this topic was ingenious because now everybody in your social circle, including your family and your friends, will now listen to you because now they'll know you as Jaron, the finance cowboy.
Isn't that crazy? It's like
It
the
is crazy.
Bible verse. It's like the prophet is without honor in his hometown. I think it's something like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they don't honor him when you know him. But then when they go out and they're the expert, it's like, whoa, this guy's awesome. Now, like you said, when the brand gets visible, now
Bro, you got to find that Bible verse for me. That's so
uh,
pertinent to me because here's what's interesting. So I get, Bethany Willis, she shows me the way. I get my first wholesale deal. I make if anybody wants to hear the in-depth story, I've got this a 2-hour story about how I got my first deal. I've told it 100 times. It's actually where my logo comes from. It's like about finding the monies. And she gets me into the world. I meet this girl named Eileen Brown. Eileen Brown teaches me creative finance, and I start blowing up. I start buying a ton of real estate, no money down, low money down, learning how to raise capital. I start blowing up. I start blowing up so much, Jaron, that the people in my local hometown actually became jealous and hateful and
Mm,
spiteful towards me.
mm.
So then I go, well, I want to keep spreading the message. So you know what I do? As I just start traveling the country, and I get more love outside of Arizona than I do in Arizona. That's such an interesting Bible. I never thought about that.
Mark 6:4. Jesus,
Mark,
the prophet, is not without honor, except in his hometown and among his relatives and in his own household. Mark
there
6.
you go. Boom.
Jesus talks about it.
That's interesting. I gotta show that to Jamil because it was interesting. Like Jamil and I, he's my co-host on our A&E TV show. It was interesting. This is probably about 5 years ago when my brand really started taking off. And he goes, "Isn't it interesting that we get so many requests to speak outside of the state?" But like even this week, I'm flying to Penn State. I'm speaking at Penn State.
That's
Like a
awesome.
professor of Penn State has asked me to come in and teach at Penn State. I'm gonna, be in Philly, then I'm going to Detroit, and I'm going to Columbus, Ohio, and I'm gonna go to Dallas on my way home. And everybody wants me to speak on their stage, except in my own hometown.
Mm,
I get very little love in my own hometown because people know me. I was the guy that came up in real estate, and they remember the guy that didn't know what he was doing. They remember the guy that was struggling and asking about the paperwork. They remember the guy that, made a mistake and screwed this thing up and had to fix the problem and blah blah. They remember that guy.
yep.
They don't. So they don't identify me. Now, what's funny? Okay, now that my brand has gotten so big, they now all tell their friends, "Oh, I know Pace.
Yeah, he's my boy.
Pace is my homie, dude. We used to hang out all the time, but he got too big." It was like, "Wait, hold on. What? I got too big? No, I had no honor in your eyes because I was in your local hometown." So interesting. And so what's interesting about that for people that are coming up, like guys, you will buy 10 rentals, right? 10 rentals, I think a lot of people will get to like their financial
Yep.
Financial freedom can be achieved with 10 properties or thereabouts, somewhere in there, depending on the property and where you're at and your own lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. But most importantly, like think about if you bought 10 properties today at age 30 or 40, and in 30 years, those 10 properties have not only appreciated, but you've cash flowed and they've all paid down over 30 years. That's your whole entire retirement. Like people are going and putting all their life eggs in one basket of their 401k. Just go buy 10 rental properties. You're freaking done,
Yep.
right? For the most part. Now, why stop there is my thing. Like, why not get more so you can give more? But it's interesting that your people around you, your circle of influence, as it stands now, as you go and learn from Jaron and you learn how to go and acquire these properties, your own family members will criticize you.
Yeah.
And the reason being, as I told this to Jaron earlier, is the reason being is you are changing. You are killing off the person that they identify you as.
Mm,
And so they get emotional about that. They don't know what they're feeling, but they're feeling something subconsciously. And so they start lashing out at you. And this is the journey that you have to go on. I don't know one person that's hit financial independence that did not have those problems along the way: criticism, family, friends, people you've lost connections with because they get jealous of you or whatever it is.
yep.
You'll hit that when you get to 5 rentals,
Yeah. Because what you're
let
doing is
alone
not
50.
normal. Nobody
Right.
does this. Nobody
Right.
does it. And so,
1% of 1%. Yeah.
yeah. And you put yourself in this class. And then, dude, I live in such a small town and I love my small town. I'm from here, but it's a small town.
Right.
And man, and it doesn't matter where you're in a small town or not. Everybody has their circle. But when you become visible, when your success becomes visible, man, you enter a entire different realm. It doesn't change you. I'm not the different person. Like people hear me on social media that know me in town. They see our house now and all the things, but it's like, bro, I'm still me. Like there's professionally, I'm at a different level. Like the way I think, the way I operate and set up systems, but it's like I'm not walking around like, hey, like you're a peasant and I'm not. Like it's not like that, but it's almost their mindset is that. It's like all of a sudden, just because I've been successful and I work hard and I didn't want to stay middle class, it's like we hate that guy. Let's tear him down.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
what?
Yeah.
What are we
Welcome to the world of somebody who gets to change the world, right? Like,
doing?
you'll get oh, that man, we could talk about this for hours, and I could tell you stories about, like, friends of mine that they fall out. They ask me like, "Hey, Pace, you wanna hang out this Friday?" I'm like, "First off, we've never hung out. Like, we always go do real estate deals together, or we do whatever. So why are you wanting to hang out?"
Yeah.
And the reason I find out weird things like they want to hang out because they saw a podcast that I was on with, let's say, Graham Stephan or the Wolf of Wall Street or whoever. And now they're like, oh, I want to still pull at that guy and keep him in my world because I can see he's growing.
Yeah.
So then they start asking you to go to lunch, which is something they've never asked you to do in the first place. And they act weird and they give you an opportunity to hang out with them that they already know you're going to say no to. So they can justify why they hate you.
Dang. That's deep, and that's
It's
spot
deep.
on.
It's so spot on. And so it's like, guys, there's an equation to the world. And if this is part of the equation, you just don't get emotional about it. You just go, I expect it. Whoever's going to be my ride or die people. And here's the coolest part about it. You get to meet other people along the way that are also scaling and growing. And they challenge you at another level that you've never felt challenged.
Mm.
And there's the next sad thing. You'll outgrow a lot of those people and you'll hit another level and you'll outgrow a lot of those people. Another level, outgrow those people. I'm at a level now, I've got 100 levels to go, but I've probably gone through 20 different iterations of friend groups in the last literally 5 years. And what I find is, let's say I go make 5 friends that are at the level I want to be in 6 months. I get to that level by hanging out with them in proximity. 4 of them fall out because they want to stay there. And me and one friend elevate to the next level of 5.
Mm.
Then 4 people fall out. Then 3 of us level up. 4 of those people fall out. And it goes up and up. And now you get to a very tight knit circle of people that are like so hell bent on just progressing forward, and everybody beneath you is like, I feel beneath you. I'm like, I've never felt that way. You've always had, my door's always been open. You just don't want to do the things that I want to do. You don't want to put in the work I want to do. You don't want to go do the things and provide value the way I want to provide value. And so you will have this. Now, it will be varying degrees based on your level of motivation. My level of motivation is I die. I go to the pearly gates. Heavenly Father, Jesus, whoever it is that you believe in, even if you don't believe in something, you believe in something. You believe in trees or forests or the river, whatever it is you believe in. You're standing in front of this big oak tree, and the oak tree says, did you live up to your highest potential? And did you show a good example to your children? And that's all I care about.
Yeah.
And so everything else doesn't matter. These friends that criticize you, it's going to happen. And that also is a sign that you're on the right path, that somebody's criticizing your success. You get one rental property, people will be like, in their subconscious, will immediately start seeding thoughts of negativity. You get to your third rental property, you then can quit your job sometimes, depending on who you are. Fifth job, quit your job. Fifth house, quit your job. I think almost everybody I know that's on a good budget could probably quit their job and go full time in real estate after 5 to 7 properties,
Yeah.
somewhere around there. And I look at that, and when you get to 5 to 7 properties and you no longer need the education that you got from school, or you didn't need the connection that your dad gave you to the job you were at, or whatever it is that you are living on, everybody in your circle of influence is going to detest all of that.
Yep. 100%. Some of them will try to cling on, and really quickly that they can't keep up. And it's sad because
Yeah.
there's some you want, like I have friends of mine that I want to pull up with me. So I'll let them into my world. And it's like, bro, they're falling off. And it's not that they won't be my friend. It's like this next level that I'm going to, they're not interested. They don't have the desire. They're not going to hang on. And so,
Yeah, actually give you a good example of this. So some people that are listening to this think that it's all about influence. It's not. Guys, think about this. This is a 99% of the population versus 1% of the population. People think about the 1%ers as a bad group of people. No, they're just people that want more. They want to be more, do more, and have more, give more, right? So one of the people that we just hired in our house is, I was like, I need a girl or a guy. I don't care if it's a boy or girl, that's just doing odd tasks for me all day long. They have nothing to do with work. It's like, hey, the garbage guy dropped the garbage can and obliterated trash all over the street. I could do that. I've done that for 39 years of my life,
yeah.
not literally, but I've done it for 20 years of my life. Been the guy that did all that. I did that. I've proven myself I can do that. I don't need to be, it's not that it's above me, but it's above what my employees and my business partners my wife needs of me in terms of my productivity. That's not a productive task.
Yeah.
Well, multiply that by 20. Light bulbs missing, chirping smoke detectors, the chlorine in the pool is out, truck needs a oil change. This needs to happen. Somebody needs to pick up my 15-year-old kid from school. So I'm like, I need somebody
Mm.
that's just a gopher. So I go on a great website, by the way. Shout out to care.com.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, care.com is dope. If you ever like, I need somebody around the house, I need like a handyman, I need a laundry cleaner, I need anybody to help me, for for babysitting, for like date night with my wife. Care.com is dope. Okay. So I go to care.com, I go through like 30 interviews. I hire this girl who just literally texted me 4 minutes before this podcast, which is where I'm headed with this story. The last 2 weeks, she's been phenomenal. Okay. The reason I hired her is because she's like, I will outwork everybody. I will do this. I will do that. I need this opportunity. I've got my back up against the wall, this, that, and the other. I need this opportunity. I go, great. I'm going to forego people with more credentials than you, more experience than you. Okay. More age than you. They've even had kids. You've never even had a kid, and I'll let you be around my kids and do whatever else. I'm not going to have them watch my kid because my wife is a full-time mom, but
Yep.
just be around just in case something needs to happen. And she just sent me a text and she goes, hey, I've got a thing. My friend is asking me to do this thing. Can I just take this week off? And I'm like, you've literally worked 2 weeks and you want to take this week off.
Mm.
Okay. So this doesn't matter if it's somebody of influence, somebody buying rental properties, a business partner. Guys, 99% of the people you will interface with in your life will be outgrown by your ambition if you are truly somebody meant to be in the 1%. You will outgrow everybody. People will disappoint you. And you just have to grow up, go, okay, no problem. And you move on. You don't get upset about it.
Yep.
And so, like, I just got this text. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Now I got to go back to the 30 people that I turned down and go, all right, let me start this whole process all over again. Right. It's the same thing with making friends. You're going to make friends that for 2 or 3 years are going to be a great fit. And the way I look at this is like, if I leave my door every day, I'm no longer making decisions for myself.
Mm.
I'm making decisions for my wife, my
Yep.
children. I'm making decisions for my business partners, my 700 employees. Those people rely on me to make good decisions and also invest my time and energy in the appropriate places.
Yeah.
So if I go hang out with somebody and I collaborate with them and we're trying to buy a rental property, we then buy a rental property together, or maybe even a handful. This is really great, actually, really great story. I had a partnership. I had a guy came to me. His name's Greg. He's like, dude, you're so good at creative finance. This is about 5 years ago. You're so good at creative finance. I'd love to buy 50 properties with you. I'll raise all the money. I'll do this. I'll manage them. If you find the deals and negotiate them and bring them to the table, I'll fund everything. Okay, well, we put an operating agreement in place. Operating agreement says we're going to go buy 50 properties together and determine whether this is a good partnership or not. Bro, we get to 3 properties and I was pulling my hair out. The guy wasn't raising the money. He wasn't managing the bank account. I had to bring in one of my other partners to come in and fulfill. We get to 21 properties. I beat my face against a wall. We get through 21 properties. And I finally went to the guy. I was like, dude, I outgrew you before we even signed the operating agreement. You don't want to work. You don't want to work. So you came to me and said you wanted something, but now here I am bringing everything to the table and you're not. So it's going to happen. And it happens immediately in your friend group. And then you'll get to another friend group that are, everybody's owning 5, 7 rental properties. And some people are like, they're happy with, I just want to quit my job.
Yeah.
And not only is there nothing wrong with that, guys, that's cool. And in some ways, you might be more sane than me.
Yeah. We were just saying earlier, we're kind of crazy. People who stay driven, they got a couple screws loose in the head. So there's nothing wrong with the folks who are like, bro, let's just
Yeah.
get
And
the freedom and then leave me alone. Let me live my life.
it's not even that there's nothing wrong with them. It's probably that there's something wrong with me. Right. So I look at it and I go, all right, I would love to own 100 properties. I get to 100 properties. I'm like, wait, why was my goal so small? I need to go to 500 properties this year.
Yeah.
And that becomes your goal. And then I realized that the goal has never been about properties. The goal has always been about how do I stretch myself on this journey of self-discovery that the universe has allowed me to be on.
Yeah.
And some people are like, I want my journey of self-discovery to go travel the world. And once I hit 15 rental properties, I can do that with my cash flow or whatever the situation is.
Yep.
And if that's the case, then your journey is just different than mine. But just know that no matter what journey you're on, you have to start with people that are above you, hang out with those people, obtain and ascertain new information you've never seen before and ways of operating that you've never seen before. And you will probably outgrow those people as well. You might happen 2 or 3 more times in your life. And it sucks, but it also is fine when you recognize it.
Yeah. And you get used to it for sure. You get used to it.
Yeah.
So I got to switch directions real quick because my audience would absolutely kill me. I know we're running out of time, so we'll keep this short and sweet. If
Yeah.
I don't allow you to talk about creative finance, you've done a fantastic job. Me and you talked before the show for an hour on branding and creative finance and how to really build yourself up in a particular niche. And you've done that. You own the space in real estate for creative finance. You've done a fantastic job. So, how did you discover creative finance? Quick breakdown of what it is and why you love it so much.
Okay, so I discovered it from Eileen Brown. She was an escrow officer. She'd been doing creative finance for 41 years. She's actually in my book, Wealth Without Cash, a book that I wrote with Bigger Pockets. Chapter 1 is like basically dedicated to Eileen Brown. She was 70 at the time. She's now 78, I think. And I was bringing in wholesale files to her, and she was like, "What's going on? Who are you? Why do you have 3 files all in one day? Like, how do you have this?" And she basically sat down, went through all my leads with me. I had 27 leads that I basically thought were trash. And she went through my leads with me as an escrow officer. So think about this. Escrow officers don't do this. Okay. She was an escrow officer that understood the business. She'd been in it for 41 years. And she challenged me to go back to all my leads and say, she challenged me to actually ask, why did those leads not work? And I said, well, some people want too much money. They're out of their freaking mind. And other people don't have any equity. So as a wholesaler, I got to buy deep in order for me to make my assignment fee. She's like, what if I told you that you could buy those deals that have no equity and still get an assignment fee? And I was like, I'd call you a liar and whatever. And she says, well, it's called subject to. And I was like, subject who? What the heck is that? And she broke it down on a whiteboard. She very if I could have done it in a different way, it took her about 2 hours to explain to me what subject to and seller finance was. And what it was, in the way I like to explain it now, it's like, imagine if I wanted an iPhone, right? Let's say last year's iPhone, the new iPhone's about to come out. So this iPhone is probably worth about $800. So if I put this on Craigslist right now, Jaron, this iPhone, if I put on for $800, I'm probably going to get offers at like $600. Yeah, welcome to real estate, right? That's the same thing. Like whatever it's worth, people are going to come in lower because they're trying to get a deal. Well, what if I went to that person that put the iPhones, and I could go on Craigslist right now and do this. If somebody has an iPhone on Craigslist and they go, hey, I need to sell this. I'm looking to buy the next one. Okay, cool. What if I went to them and I go, do you have a payment on that iPhone? Because a lot of people do with like AT&T or whoever. They say that 60% of people still have payments on their iPhone from last year's purchase. So why couldn't I just go to that person that has a payment on their iPhone and go, hey, can I just take over your payments on that iPhone so you can go and afford the next payment? That's called subject to. I'm buying an iPhone subject to the existing debt, the existing payments, the existing structure that person already used their credit, their credentials to go and obtain. And I'm just taking it over with no bank involved, no credit check involved. That's called subject to. Now I do that not only with cars, I do it with houses, apartment buildings. I just closed a $20 million deal last week in Tucson. Same exact way. And we also buy businesses with subject to. We'll take over. If somebody has a SBA loan on their business, we'll just take over their SBA loan subject to. It's crazy what you can buy with subject to.
What's the motives of a lot of these sellers? Like, where are they coming from? I'm sure.
The majority of the sellers are expired listings right now because there's so many people that are failing to sell their house in this current economy. Before this, it was primarily foreclosure. So like if I want a sub 2 deal every day, and in 2019, so this is about 4 years ago, we had a door knocking team. This was our primary way of getting deals, was cold calling sellers that were in foreclosure and door knocking sellers that were in foreclosure. And you're calling sellers in foreclosure. People are like, oh man, people have so much equity. I'm like, you're just telling me how little you've actually done research. And you're also telling me how little you actually have your boots on the ground. Like you're not actually in the business. When you're in the business, you realize like Maricopa County, where I live, there's probably an average of 1,800 new foreclosures that come on the market every single month. And about 6 to 12 people get foreclosed on every single day, every day. So why are those people just letting their payments go back to the bank? The bank taking these out. The bank doesn't want the house. So we just call the sellers. We door knock the sellers and go, hey, it looks like you're behind. You've tried to sell, wasn't able to sell. A lot of people have VA loans, FHA loans. They did a cash out refinance the year before, so they have a lack of equity. They maybe did a HELOC. They did something like that. And so we're reaching out to them and say, if I could save your credit, help you rebuild your credit, take over those payments and give you like 2,500 bucks, would you let me just take over your house subject to? And the likelihood of that is incredibly high, right? They've already tried to sell through a real estate agent. They've already tried to sell through, or they've even tried to do loan modifications, and they've failed to do that as well. So foreclosures is awesome. Um, One thing that's really, really working right now, because the market has changed a lot, is if we pull a list on, let's say, PropStream, or you go to List Source and pull the same list, is you go to properties that were purchased in 2021, 2022 that were purchased with a VA loan or an FHA loan. Why? Because they put no money down, typically 3% to $0 down, right? For a VA loan, a lot of VAs will get a loan for no money.
Yep.
And so they have no equity. And when you buy a property with no equity, guess what you actually are on day one? You're underwater 10%. So let's say I buy a property, retail value is 300. If I turn around and resell that property for 300 tomorrow, I'm getting 270 even if I sell it, because it's going to cost me 10% to sell the house. So most of these sellers in 1 year, maybe they get a job transfer, they get a divorce, something bad is going on. There's a problem. There's bunnies. There's something going on. I call problems bunnies, like they're hiding. You got to find the bunnies. And so a good negotiator, a good person, a real estate investor is going to find those bunnies. And so we will pull a list on PropStream that says 2021, 2022 originated loan, FHA, VA, and has been on the market for over 100 days. Call the agent. So if you want to do agent outreach, you're afraid of cold calling sellers, then call the agent. Go, hey, it looks like this has been on the market for 100 days. Has anybody come to you and asked the seller if they would take over payments if we could pay your commissions? So that's like, I probably buy 3 single family homes a week just doing that in Arizona alone.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
Crazy.
And that's why it's
Um,
important for realtors to understand the investment game, whether you're doing creative finance or any other types of deals.
yeah.
It can be a
Think about
road.
this, Jaron. A lot of these agents, here's what happens. Okay. So we'll call, my team will call, or some of my students will call. I buy a lot of deals from my students that are doing the same thing all over the country. And so my students will call the agent on day 100. Agent says, nope, my seller doesn't want to do that. And why is the agent saying that? The agent's saying that because the agent doesn't know how to pitch it.
Yeah.
And they don't want to look stupid. Going back to our first conversation about how agents suck. 99% of them suck. I'm sorry, guys. If you're an agent, you're listening to this right now, you know agents suck when you're an agent. In fact, you know who hates agents more than anybody else? Other agents. They hate each other. Okay. Now, the 1% unicorn agents that actually develop themselves and listen to podcasts like this are like, yeah, he's right. Like, most agents are horrible. So the agent says no on 100 days, 120 days, 140, 160, 180 days. And we call the agent every time. We respect the relationship. And I wait until 181 days. Why? Because on 181st day, the listing goes expired. Agents get fired after 6 months. They lose the right to sell the house.
Mm.
So we then call who? We call the seller directly. We go, hey, seller. And I document a lot of this on my YouTube channel. So like the last one I did like a full breakdown on was a property on Flower Street, 4101 West Flower Street. I know the address because I talk about it so frequently over the last 3 months. Agent says no on 100 days, 120, 140, 160, 180. We call the seller. I get the property under contract subject to. The seller says to me when we call him, he goes, you would do that? Whereas like people that are listening to this for the first time go, why would a seller do that? The sellers that have gone through this have already said, why would you do that? That seems too good to be true.
Mhm.
So the seller on Flower, he's like, well, do I have to pay you any money to take over my mortgage? Very different mindset when you get into this business and you understand this stuff and you're focusing on the people with pain. So the seller says, yeah, I'll let you sell the property or buy the property subject to. I take it over, no money. Of course, I've got closing costs and some renovation that comes from a private money lender or a private money partner, depending on how you want to structure that. Sometimes you give equity to a private money partner, and private money lenders you just have in their interest only type of thing.
Yep.
Second lien position. So what we then do is once we close, it records. I've got the HUDs, I've got all that stuff. I send a couple of PDFs over to the agent who represented the seller, and I say, hey, I closed this deal, and I'm not doing this to rub it in your face, but I'm letting you know that you could have made $9,000 on this transaction, but you didn't. Can we sit down and have a conversation? Can you come to our office? I'd love to have you go out and find these same deals for us. So that deal on flower, that agent went and found me 5 more deals, and he's made, I think, something like 40 grand in the last 3 months because he's just like, he's going through expired listings. And he's like, I'm an agent, but I know I have a different strategy. Oh my gosh, I have a different strategy, seller. You haven't sold it. So
That's
it's, if
cool.
you're an agent, you're listening to this, guys, go after expired listings, but don't be the knucklehead agent that's like, all right, I'm going to call an expired listing and explain to the seller why I'm a better agent. Nobody's a better agent than anybody else.
Yeah.
Okay. The MLS sells properties, not you. Let's face it. The market determines the price, not the agent. Okay. And yeah, sometimes you guys have some pocket buyers and you dress really nice. You got your nice little Coldwell Banker thing. But the reality is the MLS sells your properties for you. Okay. Not open houses. The MLS does. And buyer's agents sell houses. Okay. The buyer's agent has more control of what the buyer buys than the seller's agent does. Okay. So the reality is most agents are calling expired listings, and pull this up, by the way. Okay. In Maricopa County, the last 2 weeks, I pulled this up 2 days ago. Last 2 weeks, just in Maricopa County, 980 properties failed to sell on the market. They then became expired listings. So when people are like, how often does this come up? Guys, this is so common. Okay. Pull up Boise, Idaho. Last 2 years, 110,000 expired listings in the last 24 months. You tell me that this isn't happening all the time. So expired listings are gangster. Long days on market if you want to go direct to agent. A lot of people like working with agents over direct to seller. I prefer direct to seller because I get to hear the story.
Yep.
I get to actually provide a solution to the seller instead of having an agent in between, because agents are not taught sales and strategy. They're not taught how to extract the pain from a seller and understand the situation. If you understand the situation, you understand what club to use for which individual shot,
Mm.
right? Could you imagine trying to play golf with a blindfold on?
Yeah.
That's what agents do, because they're not asking the question, where am I standing? Am I in the fairway right now? How far away am I from the hole? Am I? Am I 100 yards away from the hole? Am I 140 yards away from the hole? How do you know which club to pull out of your bag if you don't see where the hole is? And so, agents, to me, when I go, well, why is your seller selling? They go, what does that have to do with anything? I'm like, everything. That has everything to do with everything. Are they trying to mitigate sale? Are they trying to mitigate tax situations? Are they trying to maybe stay in the property for 45 days after they close escrow? There's 1,000 reasons why you should know where the hole exists before you pull the club out of the bag.
Yep.
And so most agents are playing this game blindfolded. They're not trained. They don't know what they're doing. And so investors like us come in and sweep the floor with them.
Yeah.
But
Seems
I
like we're starting
prefer,
to catch on though. We-
yeah, I prefer to work with them. That's the thing,
uh,
is I'm trying to work with them. So I'll go back to that agent on flower, which we did, and we've done 5 deals with that one agent because of this. I document this on my YouTube channel, by the way, so you guys can go look at that whole story, and you can see me calling the seller. And when I called the seller, I go, "Hey seller, thank you for doing business with me. I'm standing in front of the property. Just want to ask you one question. What's the one thing you wish happened differently that my team could have done a better job at when we handled this transaction?" Right? I'm always looking for feedback.
Mhm.
The seller says, "Your team, you guys were amazing. I just wish the agent knew about this subject to thing." Then I call the agent, that's on the YouTube channel too, and I go, "I want to do business with you." And he's like, "You guys got that deal done, huh?" And I go, "Yep, I did." And I go, "Let me just ask you a quick question. Was the reason you did not pitch this thing to him is because you did not know how to and you were too embarrassed to tell me you didn't know how to?" And he says, "To be honest with you, yes."
Mhm.
So you're going to run into a lot of agents that are just too embarrassed to admit that they don't know what they're doing, and they won't pitch seller finance. They won't pitch subject to. They won't pitch lease options. They don't even understand. Everybody's heard of a lease option, and an agent doesn't know how to do a lease option. So if you prefer to work with agents, because there's a benefit of working with agents. What's the benefit of working with agents? They'll bring you more deals over time.
Yep.
Whereas working direct to seller, which I prefer to do, direct to seller, I'm having one relationship typically 99% of the time. One deal gets done from that seller.
Yeah.
I maybe meet one seller a year that will sell me 3 or 4 properties. And the most I've ever gotten is I had a seller named June. I bought 31 properties from her for over the course of 4 years.
Wow.
That is the most rare unicorn ever in the seller world. But she owned 90 properties, and she sold everything to me, all 31 properties to seller on seller finance. And it was basically the other 60 properties she had, she sold to other people for cash. And so she would come to me on properties she couldn't sell for the number she wanted on cash, and she would give me seller finance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't run into people who have 90 properties who are willing to offload 30 hardly. I mean, if you can run into those portfolios, fantastic. But to be able to scoop
No.
it up on seller finance, but you make a great point. Like when you are going direct to seller, which I enjoy doing as well, you get to meet people, you learn their story, you really get the sensation of being able to help somebody. But I don't want to say it's harder to scale because you guys, you can put systems in place to do it. But like you said, when you have that agent who is just feeding you leads, it just makes life a little bit easier for you, especially if you're a smaller outfit.
Yeah.
But they have to be coached and know what you're looking for and how to have those conversations with sellers, which can be tough. In my W 2 job, my whole goal when I was selling for this medical device company, I would sell to EMS directors.
Mm,
I knew that they were easy to sell. They were the end user, but they had to go and pitch it to county council.
mm.
And so if I wasn't able to teach them, train them, coach them on how to show that this medical device is the most important thing that you need for your service, then it was a lost cause. And it's the same thing with a realtor pitching it to the end user. If you can't give the realtor what they need, the material they need, the information they need, and the training to them for them to be able to go and position it to their seller, you're not going to get many deals done.
Yeah, and that's a challenging thing is you're playing telephone with somebody who doesn't understand that. So I prefer like when I'm doing cash deals, real estate agents are really amazing. But when I'm doing creative finance deals, I'm like, man, Mr. Real Estate Agent, can you just go on my YouTube channel for like a week and then come back to me? Because
Just
like I don't have the time to educate you on what real estate's all about and like how this actually works. And so for us, like scalability, agents get in our way with creative finance for the most part. With cash deals, agents get it, right? They finally get it. So there's a downside to creative finance is that you have to educate the people. The thing about the seller when I do seller finance or subject to a seller, they have a blank slate. So when I teach them something, they didn't have a broker tell them the incorrect ways. They didn't have, I can just go in and go, yeah, I can take over your payments. It's really easy. Well, how? Well, go to a title company. Title company does the paperwork. It works out pretty simple. It's actually easier than a cash transaction because we don't have to do a payoff request to your bank. We don't have to do this. We don't have to involve appraisers. We don't have to involve any of that stuff. It's actually creative finance, not even in my opinion, it is factual. There's no credit used. There's no credentials used. There's no appraisal that's being pulled. There's no bank getting involved in doing a payoff request. There's none of this stuff. So when you own a title company, which we own a title and escrow business, my easiest transactions are subject to and seller finance transactions because there's literally 7 less people involved in the transaction than a cash transaction.
Wow.
And so when people are like, "Oh, creative finance is challenging," I'm like, "In what world is creative finance challenging? It's just that you haven't heard of it yet." But there was a point in life where you also didn't hear what a fix and flip was, and you had to learn what that was.
Yep.
So it's the same level of a barrier of entry than anything else, but it's way easier. Think about this: if you never had to use credit, literally 2,000 doors in our portfolio, 500 of those are I have partners on. I've never used my credit one time. In my personal house, live in a $3 million, 12,000 square foot house, didn't pull my credit. I had $1,700 in my bank account the day I closed escrow on this deal in this house. Nobody even asked what my bank statements were. Nobody asked what my credit was. Nobody asked what my tax returns were. I don't remember the last time I shared my tax returns with anybody.
Wow.
So it is way easier. It's a layup. Now, it's a skill that you have to learn, which is nice, is how do I identify those and how do I structure the deals? Because now there's terms involved. And terms, usually when you're doing the BRRRR strategy, the terms come from the bank.
Yep.
But if you have to then create the terms on your own accord, then that requires an additional skill. So, there's challenges with creative finances that it does require some additional learning that the other strategies don't really require. Because you'll just get a bank in the BRRRR strategy where it's easy is like the bank goes, yeah, we'll give you a 70% LTV loan. So you got to come in with 30%. We'll give you, this length of term. We'll give you 5%. Here's what your payment's going to be. And then you can go and compare that against your rents and go, okay, is this going to work?
Yeah.
If you don't like that, go to a different bank. But in creative finance, there is no bank.
Yeah.
If I go directly to the seller, there's pluses and minuses. Once I understand that skill, I go to the seller and go, look, I'm going to be able to rent this for 2,000. You want me to pay you a $1,500 payment. The problem is I got $1,500 to you. I got taxes, insurance. I got budget. I got fluff when the, vacancy happens and blah, blah, blah. I got to be at like $1,200 to make this work and make a couple $100. I can negotiate that in seller finance. You can't really do that in other strategies. So I think it's challenging to get into, but once you understand that skill, you're basically like Superman of real estate.
Yep. Yeah, anything worth having takes work. No matter what
Yeah.
strategy you do, there's a learning curve. So
Right.
suck it up, learn it, apply it. And the biggest thing is just go and do it. Stop sitting on the sidelines. Make
Right.
it happen. Your life will change. Man, we're just scratching the surface on the creative finance piece of things. I know if people want to learn more about it, where can they find you, Pace? Where can they learn more about creative finance?
Just go to my YouTube channel. I just actually had somebody DM me this morning. She said, I bought 4 Subto deals. I couldn't afford to get into your mentorship, your community. So I just watch your YouTube channel and I've done 4 deals so far. And so that's why I built it. I built it for the people that are action takers. I built it for the people that are like, I know that I can follow instructions. Here's the challenge with YouTube. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I'm not doing a series of like, all right, here's day 1 of the year and we're going to go through 365 chronological videos. That's not how it works. I put up there whatever I want in whatever random order. So you'll feel like you're all over the place. But the people that can figure that out, YouTube is the best place to start.
It's awesome. YouTube.com /
Pace Morby.
Pace Morby. Go check it out. Pace, man, thank you so much. You've had the opportunity to be on a lot of big stages, hang out with a lot of cool people, and you spent a lot of hours with little old Jaron here in Anderson, South Carolina today. So I am forever grateful. The listeners are going to glean so much for this. And I just want to thank you, bro, for taking the time to be on the show today.
No problem, brother. Anytime. Let me know whenever you got problems, questions, issues, you need a connection. I'm your guy.
Awesome, dude. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Okay, later, brother.